I was just on vacation this past week, and it's been a few times now that I've traveled with one of these particular of my friends. And we've worked out this dynamic when we go traveling, that at the end of a day, we'll go out to some place where we can enjoy some adult beverages, and we will ask ourselves, so what are we going to do tomorrow? And we'll plan out the next day, the night before. We'll talk about, it's like, all right, we want to get up at this time, we want to go to this place, we want to see that sort of thing while we're here, we'll want to do this, and we'll plan out a whole day the night before. So that when we wake up in the morning, we're ready to go. Usually he would wake up before I would, because I needed a lot of sleep this past week, apparently. We had the whole preparation done, so that when the next day came, we could just enter into the day. We knew what we were doing. We knew where we wanted to go. We knew what we wanted to accomplish. And no, of course, none of our plans went exactly according to plan, especially with the one friend when we went to Six Flags up in Montreal. That's where I went this past week, by the way, Montreal. And we went to Six Flags, and we wanted to hit all of the roller coasters, but the lines were getting too long, and I was getting too hungry, and all this sort of stuff. So not all of our best laid plans go according to plan. But we had a plan. So it was easy to enter into the time up in Montreal. Since we were prepared, we could receive whatever Montreal had to offer to us, whether it was the fun at Six Flags or some of the beauty at the churches that we got to see the one day. This is the importance of preparation. As Jesus calls us to be prepared, this is the importance of preparation. Why do we prepare? So that what is coming to us, we are ready to receive. So that what is coming to us, we are more ready to receive than if we weren't prepared for it. Like, even if I was just thinking about, like, we went to Six Flags that day and we had no idea what we wanted to do in the park. We had no idea what rides were there. We had no idea what French even sounded like, because yes, they do speak French up there. We really wouldn't be able to get around the park very well that day. We probably wouldn't be able to accomplish things. We probably would have walked all over, worn ourselves out a lot more if we hadn't done the preparations that we had. Jesus invites us to prepare. Jesus calls us, encourages us, even commands us to prepare, to be ready. Ready for what? His kingdom. Ready for Jesus himself to come to us. Yes, and we're talking about the second coming, when he comes in the fullness of his glory, and a whole bunch of stuff is going to happen on that day. Yes, we prepare, we be ready for that day. At the same time, we also prepare, we are ready for how Christ wants to come to us today. Yes, there was the first coming of Christ, when he came through the womb of the Blessed Virgin Mary and was born on that Christmas day. That was the first coming of Christ. Yes, we look forward to the second coming of Christ, that time when he comes on the last day with all of his glory. But there is also what St. Augustine would call a third coming of Christ. And that's the daily coming of Jesus Christ to our lives. Particularly when we hear his word, when we receive his graces in the sacraments, whether that's in confession or here in the Eucharist, whether that's in that poor person who comes to us asking for an ear to listen to, or asking for some food or some clothing. Christ comes to us each day under many forms, under many guises, in so many ways. So Christ calls us to be prepared, to be ready when he comes, whether it's the second coming or whether it's his coming today. So how can we be prepared? No, it's not going to have some adult beverages and talking it over. How do we be prepared? Well, Jesus gives us some examples. He gives us one right off the bat at the beginning of this section of the gospel. Give alms. What ultimately that little section in there is talking about is detachment. Father T was just preaching about that a couple of weeks ago, and he teed it up so well for us. To be able to recognize the goods of these worlds as good. These things are good. They're blessings that come to us. But they're not our final good. They aren't our end. They're not that which we live for. So to hold these goods loosely, as Boston might sing, hold on loosely. Yes, I know that reference to Boston, Father T. I am trained well in your generation. We hold it on so that we are ready to put these goods of the world at the service of the true good. So that we're ready to put the goods that we have at the service of charity. Jesus calls us to have this sense of detachment so that we aren't held back by this world, but that we're free to receive the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God in its fullness. That's the first step of being ready, of being prepared. This detachment from earthly goods. Again, recognizing that they are good, but allowing them to be at the service of the true good. And even flowing from that comes those ways, those practices that we have deep within our tradition. Jesus mentions it with give alms. But there are two other practices that we highly emphasize during Lent: giving alms, prayer, and fasting. These are things that we emphasize during Lent, but they're meant to be part of our entire Christian life, all of the time. This is how we are meant to be preparing ourselves, to having our hearts and minds be ready for when Christ comes to us. We have this prayer where Christ directly wants to come to us, to spend that time with us, to speak to us, to guide us in our minds and our hearts through that conversation, heart to heart with Him. Through that fasting, which is that part of detachment, but that denial of some of these things that are good so that we are ready to receive more good. And then that almsgiving, that ready to live that life of charity, which Jesus gives in His fullness through the cross, which Jesus shows us through His cross. Being ready to show this love towards one another by giving not only our goods, but giving ourselves for the good of another. As we live out these practices every day in some way, prayer, fasting, and almsgiving, it makes us prepared because it widens our hearts. It expands our lives from just beyond this world, from just beyond the cares of the present moments, the demands of right now. It expands our lives to be able to recognize that there is something more going on right here, right now. There is something more that Christ might want to be giving me in this encounter. There is something more that I could become in this very moment. Through prayer, fasting, and almsgiving, and through the spirit of detachment, it expands us, ready to receive Christ as He comes to us. So when it comes to that second coming and we're living these things every single day, then it doesn't matter if the second coming is tomorrow, because we will be ready to receive that fullness of the kingdom as much as we possibly can. And even here tonight, as we are ready, as we prepare in these ways through prayer, fasting, and almsgiving with the spirit of detachment, we are ready to receive Christ in His third coming, as He comes to us tonight here on this altar in the Eucharist. And through these ways of being prepared, of being ready, our hearts are widened, our minds are opened, our lives are expanded to receive whatever Jesus wants to give us, and to receive Him with the fullness of our lives.